including this one with Eric Gilboord, and we're talking about, well, Eric, this is your interview, so we're going to talk about your business, maybe,
Sure.
which is really helping people to sell or transition out of their businesses. Or how would you describe it?
It's a company called Warren Business Development Center, and basically we tend to focus on more boomer age business owners who are looking to transition, as you said, out of the business or completely sell the business. It's something that they are probably the least prepared for, but it's probably the most important sale they're ever going to make.
Right.
Because they spent the last 20, 30, 40 years growing a business, but they didn't really spend a lot of time thinking about the exit. So now they're running up against the wall, and it's time to do something.
Right. Okay. So, and we were talking about this because both Marie and I have sold real estate, and when they give us our certificate after we go to school, they tell us that we're equipped to sell businesses or be an agent to help business owners sell their businesses to somebody else. But
And that's not who we are.
that's not who you are.
No.
And and really every business is different, and there's a lot to understand. So maybe you and your company are better equipped to actually deal with that whole issue. Do you want to talk a little bit about
Sure.
that?
Well, what we do, and what makes us, I guess, perhaps different from an M&A firm, a merger and acquisition firm, or from a business broker, is that we go in and, first of all, we look at two things. We look at the owner, because it's equally important to prepare the owner for the transition. In fact, initially, it's probably 80% you're dealing with the owner and the emotions and what they're thinking about and what they're planning and not knowing what it is that they're going to do, and the balance is dealing with the company. And when you start dealing with the company, it's operations, finance, sales, marketing, HR, capital. There's lots of different ways to go in and impact the business and to make it 50% bigger, twice as big, 3 times as big, and typically if it's larger, if you do it right, you've increased the value of the business. So at the end of the day, what you're suggesting to an owner is, do you want to sell a $4 million company, or do you want to sell a $7 or $8 million company? It's up to you, and you can do it if you want.
Well, what do you have to do though, and how do you help them do whatever they have to do to make that?
You go into the company and you look at all the different aspects of operations and finance and sales and marketing. Typically, a lot of it has to do with sales and marketing, and I'll give you a very simple example. When you say to an owner who's been in business 20 or 30 years, typically 20% of your customers are 80% of your business. So if I asked you, if I went and called on those 20% of your customers and asked them if they knew everything that you did, all the products you sold and all the services that you provided, how many of them do you think would say yes, that they knew everything? And inevitably an owner will say, well, nobody would. Well, that's a good starting point, is just to go to your existing customers and tell them all the things that they don't know that you offer, because you're leaving a lot of money on the table. And that's just one small, simple example. There's lots of things from marketing and ideas that are on the back burner that they've never really done anything with. There are businesses that we're working with now where the owners are sitting on intellectual property and they don't really realize it, or it's something special that they know how to do something, but if they were to actually go through the legals, they'd have an incredibly valuable piece of intellectual property. There's so many different ways to go into a business and figure out ways to improve what they're doing. And when you're dealing with things like manufacturing, there's always ways that you can improve the business, because people get settled into their stream of doing things, and they don't always necessarily look for ways to improve. They get comfortable. They put their business on cruise control.
Well, I mean, it sounds like this isn't just for businesses that are where the owner's trying to transition out. It sounds like almost every business could use the kind of expertise you're talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I like to say that it's never too early to start thinking about transitioning your business. So typically someone will say to me, well, when should I start? Well, the minute that you start the business, or actually before you even start it, you should be thinking about your exit strategy and thinking about what you're doing. The companies that I was talking about, the ones that have been established for 20 or 30 or 40 years, they can't go back to the beginning. So it's again, never too early or too late to start thinking about it. But certainly younger companies, absolutely. They can take advantage of the things that we can do for them.
I mean, even if they don't want to transition out, if you can come
No.
in, for example, and get more productivity out of a manufacturing process.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, can you give me an example of
Yeah.
that? Because everybody's always talking about how Canada's lagging behind in our productivity. I mean, maybe you just need to go into every company in the country and fix them up.
No, I think the owner just needs to look at their staff and say, what can we do to make things better? I'll tell you what really happens a lot of times with, especially with boomer age owners, and especially on the lower end, the $2-3 million range, and sometimes, you know, the 5, 6, 8, 10, $15 million range as well. They get to a point where the business is a certain comfortable size. They can wrap their arms around it, and they don't have to worry about dealing with it because it's a good size for them and it's comfortable. So it might be 2.5, 2.6, 2.7 million in annual sales. And the breaks typically are 3 million, 5 million, 10 million, 20 million. So to go from 2.6 to 3 or 3.5 or 4 means a lot more work. And so an owner will typically stay, you know, below that, and the next level is 5 million, and it's the same challenge where there's new challenges and more responsibility. So inevitably what they've done is they've kept it a certain size because it was comfortable. And now they're thinking about, well, what the heck am I going to do now? It's time to cash out. I have to pay for my retirement. What am I going to get for a $2.5 million company versus what I can get for a 3 or 3.5 or 4 or 5 or $10 million company? So we have a situation, a company that we're dealing with now. It's an engineering firm. They're very, very specialized in what they do. They effectively build a better mousetrap within their industry, electrical engineering. And, you know, the couple of things that have been holding the owner back is the capital to take on larger jobs and the capital to hire more people and finding, you know, the right, better people. Well, we're solving that problem really easily because finding capital isn't difficult if you have something, you know, good to offer, and finding the right people isn't difficult if you know where to look. So, you know, we're putting those pieces in place so that he has an unlimited ability to grow. And then you might say, well, if somebody's got a $2.6, $2.7 million business, you know, how big can they take it? Well, look at it from this perspective. They're building a product for a client that's $1 million. And it doesn't really matter what it is. It's an industrial type of product that they're building. And, you know, that becomes their IP. They're in a position where they're getting an order for 2. They could go out and sell 3 or 4 or 5 or 8 or 10 more. And all of a sudden, you've got $10 or $12 million worth of orders. So how do you go from being a $2.7 million company to a $10 or $12 million company? It's that simple. But why doesn't someone like this do it? And why doesn't it happen more often? Because I don't have the capital to you know, do 2 million, let alone 10 or 12 million. Or it's beyond my reach or beyond my scope, beyond my experience. But that's where folks like us come in and can show them how they can move from here to here or here or here.
So where did you guys get the expertise to be able to do this?
A lot of experience working with small and medium-sized business owners, and so we know them very, very well. Prior to Warren BDC, I had a marketing consulting firm, and so spent about 20 years working with small, medium-sized business owners. And they're a special breed, and you really have to understand how their mind works and how they make decisions and what can turn them off and what can turn them on. Not everybody has the ability to work with that kind of an owner. And then about, I guess 4 or 5 years ago, started asking owners, you know, if they'd been thinking about transitioning or selling. And at that point, no one wanted to talk about it. But I realized that there was something happening because of aging and you know, the average age of a boomer owner today is 68, 69 years old. So when you're 60 or 63 or even 65, you still feel somewhat invincible. You get to 68, 69, 70 years old, you might still have another 30 years on the runway, but you don't feel as invincible as you did. So you start thinking about the transition thing. Everyone thought this was going to happen 5 or 10 years ago. There was no way that it was going to happen because anybody who spends 10, 20, 30, 40 years building something, you don't just walk away from it. You know, so it's a time issue that's starting to happen where that audience, the boomer age owner, is running out of time. They've finally come to the realization that their kids aren't going to take over the business,
Right.
which is an incredible myth. It
Yeah.
it almost never happens.
Yeah.
And there's an expression, if you want to give your kid $1 million company, you start with a $3 million company,
Yeah.
unless they're really qualified.
Right.
So there's a lot of issues going on, a lot of things happening, and, at the end of the day, if you don't do something about a transition, then you're potentially leaving a huge mess for your family.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can say to an owner who has a partner, well, how would you like it if your spouse was now forced to work with your partner?
Mm-hmm.
And the owner will look at me and go, well, they hate each other. Well, then you need to do something about this, or potentially that's what's going to happen.
So it sounds like almost like it's a demographic, like this is almost a time-sensitive business.
Yeah,
that
this
you're
is
in
this
because
is like the bump in
demographic-
a python.
Yeah.
It's a very, very time sensitive. But what's also important is the economics of it. 65% of established companies in this country are owned by boomer age owners. So I'm not talking about a handful of companies out there.
Mhm.
I'm talking about 65% of the companies. And some owners are closing their doors, and they're just taking as much money as they can out and closing the door. And a typical $2 million, $3 million company, they have 20 employees. So if you close the door and you take as much money as you can out of the company because you decide that's the best plan for you, and you put 20 people on the street, you now have 20 families that are impacted by that one decision. Well, what if 100 people do that? What if 1,000 people do that?
So where's the next generation of business?
There's two
owners?
there's two generations, because the question is who's buying these companies, and it's interesting. It's a combination of younger people who realize the advantage of being in business and having a business and having trades and whatnot. Not everybody wants to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an accountant. It's also the folks that have sold their companies, and they may have sold a $10, $15, $20 million company, and 6 months after selling, they're bored. You can only play so much golf, you can only travel so much, you can only be home so long before your spouse turns around and says, when are you getting out? Because that's typically what happens. And so you have folks that have built and sold companies coming back and buying companies. So you might get somebody who buys a $2 or $3 million business almost as a hobby business.
Yeah.
Make sure there's management in place, make sure they have all the things they need, and provides mentoring and kind of coaching advice. And maybe they grow that business to 5 or 6 million, or maybe they buy 2 or 3 companies and end up with a $10 million company. Or they get together with 2 or 3 friends and they each throw in $5 million and buy 2 or 3 smaller companies. But that's actually where the buying is happening, because a lot of people with money, and there's a ton of money out there, are not as confident in the stock market or funds, or what they are confident in is buying below the radar, unsexy, widget making industrial companies. That's what they're going out and buying, because at least they have some control over it, and if it's a profitable company, they're going to do better with that company than likely they are through other mechanisms for
Other investments,
other
whatever they
investments.
might be, right?
Yeah.
What about, so you mentioned, there are younger people coming in and buying these companies, but I mean, is there are there certain generations, in your experience, better at running businesses than other generations?
No, it's all over the map, actually. It's interesting, and it's sometimes it's someone coming in and trying to buy a business with their own funds, and it's usually very difficult. The ones that can actually afford to buy a company are essentially investing family money. And it can be millions of dollars. It's not necessarily a small amount, but what people are starting to realize is you can take a few $1 million and invest in a startup, and that's wonderful. And your chance of being successful, because everybody thinks they're going to have the next great $1 billion company, your chance of being successful is very, very slim. But what would happen if you took the same money and you bought an existing company that already had a customer base, it already had staff, it already had cash flow, it was already profitable? Wouldn't that be a better way to get going? So if you're a young person, as an example, and there's something that you want to do, maybe you have a new way of looking at something, or you have some new technology or something, instead of doing it from a startup perspective, wouldn't it make more sense to invest or buy something that's already existing and then integrate what you want to do into something that's already a going concern? It just, to me, it just seems logical.
That sounds pretty smart.
Yeah.
I hope so. I think the economy needs it, because I think that we're here in the less now in the United States, but, if people start to do what I know they're doing in terms of closing the doors, this economy can't handle it. It really can't. So I'm very big on encouraging whatever age to come in and take over companies and keep them going, make them better, pay people more, treat people better, grow the companies, hire more people. That's what we need to see happen.
Well, that sounds actually like, that is what we need. Are you a voice crying in the wilderness?
Now, I've been more vocal lately through LinkedIn and other sources. I mean, I tend to do a lot of writing, and I have some books out, and I'm in various publications and blogs and whatnot, and I've become a more vocal individual.
So, you got the book Moving Forward, or at least that's one of your books. Now, who should get in touch with you? And it almost sounds like not just business owners who are trying to get out of their business, but maybe anybody, younger or older, who wants to get into business. I mean, are you like a matchmaker sort of as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what happens is we prepare the business for transition, whatever that means, and then we can bring buyers to the table and put the deal together. And every situation is different. Every business is different. Every owner is different. Everybody has their own set of circumstances and challenges. And so what we do is we start off with a custom transition roadmap, which is essentially going in and spending time with the owner, spending time in the business, and figuring out where exactly the owner wants to be and what that means to the business, what that means to the owner and their family personally. We present lots of ideas and different ways of looking at things, because what they don't understand is there's a big gray landscape. It's not black or white. It's not buying and selling. There's just a huge landscape in the middle where you can do partial sales and transitions and all kinds of things. So, we hold a mirror up to the owner to help them determine what is it truly that they wish to do, what do they want to do, and expose them to other things that they hadn't thought about, then create that roadmap, and then help execute the roadmap to get them to the point where they transition. And maybe it is to the kids, or maybe it's to the management. There's lots of different ways it can go, or maybe it is in fact a sale. What's nice about what's happening lately is we're getting calls from owners that are actually in their early 50s. And they're the ones that are starting to realize it's time to get on top of this. And they're thinking about a transition 5, 10, 15 years from now. So they're not waiting to the last minute. They're getting on board. So in terms of who can we help, sure, I'm happy to help somebody who's 5 years ahead of the curve or 10 years ahead.
Or more. Or
Absolutely.
start right from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So Eric, I was
absolutely.
going to ask you about, what do you think about franchise, that not the big franchise like McDonald's or something like that, smaller ones that, like 30-year-olds are doing their own franchise, or, having restaurants that they're, having other people buying into their franchise and giving them that roadmap to how to set it up and bring in their clientels and everything like that.
So to franchise an
Yeah,
idea?
yeah.
Absolutely, for sure. There's lots of different businesses out there, and I'm seeing new ones, literally every day. You can't walk through a food court without seeing cool new ideas,
Yeah.
where someone just decided that, they're going to do something, they're going to do it for a period of time, it's making some sense, and then other people want to.
Want
And
to
so there's
buy into
lawyers
it,
and
yeah.
other kinds of folks that specialize in franchise or licensing or, what have
Right.
you. What's also interesting is should somebody actually buy a franchise versus starting their own business? And the reality is, depending on the personality, in some cases, it's a really good idea just to buy a franchise as opposed to starting your own company, because a lot of the hard work has been taken care of, and you have people that can lead you, you have people that can, help you in a big way, assuming you buy into a really good franchise organization. It's interesting. Franchises are all over the map in terms of size. Everybody knows kind of the top 1%. Nobody knows the other 999 out of 1,000 franchise organizations that might have 3,000 franchisees, which have never heard of them.
Right.
So it's a whole big world.
Oh,
out
yes,
there.
I've been noticing that. I've been bumping into a lot of these small franchise, and you know, they've been open for like 7 years, and now this person has like 5 different franchise, and it's really amazing what's going on.
And some of them just take off and they
Yeah.
go from 5 to 55 overnight. Because if you have something good that the marketplace wants, spinning that out isn't necessarily that difficult, assuming you surround yourself with people that actually know what they're doing. And that's the big caveat.
Well,
People that know
if
what
they
they're
don't
doing.
know what they're doing, they can always give you a call, Eric, because
Absolutely.
it sounds like you know what you're doing. And
A lot of micro mistakes, you know, and micro pivots.
so what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
The simplest thing is just to go to warrenbdc.com. So WARREN BDC.com. And no, we're not connected with BDC, the bank. It's just a happy coincidence. And just go on the site, and there's everything that you want to know is pretty much on the site. And you can, you know, determine yourself if you want to give us a call and have a conversation. There's lots of information. There's lots of things to help you think about what it is that you want to do and fill you in on this path of figuring out, you know, kind of where you're going. They can also go to ericgilboard.com, and they can look at my personal site where I'm essentially an author and a speaker. And so if somebody had an audience of business owners that they know they want to find out more about transition, I'm a pretty good person to put in front of an audience and get them excited. I know that there's lots of associations and organizations that are concerned that their members are not doing anything about transition, and there's going to be some trouble if they don't. So the idea of bringing someone in, putting them in front of a group of those folks, and getting them actually get the conversation going, just get started, you know, thinking about transition. I'm pretty good at doing that.
Okay, awesome. Well, this has been great to have this conversation.
Well,
Thanks
thank you.
for
I
coming
appreciate
in.
it. Excellent.
Yeah.
You good?
We're good. We're going to take
Right.
a little break. We got lots more coming up. Liquid Lunch here at channel.com. We'll be right back.